This is the Horn Takes podcast. You're very rough around the edges. Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's After Action Review Tuesday. We finally watched the broadcast of the game, and there's nothing else for us to do now but accept it and move on. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. You can listen to the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you don't know a place to listen to podcasts, you can go to horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. You can find every single episode we've ever done at that link. Subscribe, follow. Won't cost you guys a thing. Help us out. We appreciate it. We'll start off this morning, or this afternoon, I guess. We're 12 noon with the Week 6 Trace Otra games recap. 2-1 this week. Still looking for that perfect weekend, man. We haven't done it yet. We also haven't gotten every single one wrong yet, so I guess that's okay. We're 9-9 on the season for a pretty mediocre 500, but that's all right. We're not picking easy ones, folks. That's why we're 9-9. First game for Week 6 was number 23 LSU at number 21 Mizzou. LSU started out as a 5.5-point favorite. Then it moved to 4. I figured there'd be lots of points. Neither defense was good coming into this game. I was right. There were lots of points, and neither defense was good. I think it was going to come down to which QB made a mistake. I'm pretty sure my guy had some mistakes, man. I'm pretty sure the Missouri quarterback made some mistakes in this game down the stretch. I had Mizzou with the upset, outscoring LSU 41-38. And for a long time in that game, they kept a couple of times at the Cotton Bowl, I'd see the score go up. I was really, really surprised though to see what it was at one point. It was pretty rough. So LSU must have did some damage late in the game. Ended up winning at 49-39. That LSU offense, man, is so good, but their defense is just abysmal. If that team had a defense in the top, I don't even know where they rank in defense, but it's got to be pretty low. If they just had like a good defense, man, they'd be really, really tough out. I think that's what I think people probably thought that team was going to have at least an okay defense. Game number 2, number 11 Bama at Texas A&M. Bama started out this week of this game as a 1.5-point favorite, and then it moved down to a pick'em. So Friday night, I believe, Friday afternoon, and on into Saturday, it was a pick'em. Thought both of these schools, both these programs have really, really talented rosters, some of the best in the country. I thought maybe this game not being at night could be a pretty big external factor. Maybe even the biggest external factor. There's just always something not about a night game, you know. Fans have a lot longer to get tuned up. The excitement builds all day. The environments at night games are just so much better than the environments at other games, day games. Matchup of the game for me was the Bama offensive line against the Aggie defensive line. The Aggie defensive line has been playing pretty damn good football most of this year. And I think that Alabama offensive line has just kind of struggled, just kind of got through, hasn't really dominated like a lot of people thought they would. So I thought whoever wins that matchup probably wins the game. We had Bama going on the road, beating A&M 27-23. Final score of that one was Alabama 26, Aggie 20. So I was really close on that one. Then number 20, Kentucky at number 1, Georgia. Georgia, 14.5-point favorite. On paper, this was like a terribly lopsided matchup. But, you know, up until this game, Georgia just hasn't really clicked offensively. Hadn't really been able to. Kirby Smart hadn't been able to figure out how to get that offense going. So I kind of like Kentucky to cover. And I thought Georgia would win this game relatively easy, but I thought Kentucky would probably cover. I was thinking 31-17. They win 51-13. So we go 1-2. Or excuse me, 2-1 on our Trace Otra games for week 6. Check out the show on Friday, noon Central Time. We'll do some Trace Otra games, and I guess they'll just be Trace games because there's not Otra because Texas isn't playing this weekend for week 7. After action review Tuesday. So this is where we really like actually watch the game, look at the stats, put down our thoughts. When we have a chance to sit down and think about it, we know the outcome of the game. There's no emotions involved at this point. We did Exaggeration Monday yesterday, and that's where it's all probably. There's not a lot of facts going on. It's just a bunch of feelings and frustration. Sometimes if you lose, offensively, outside of the first couple drives, Texas looked really good. 527 total yards, only punted one time. They possessed the ball for 32 minutes. Just over 32 minutes. But what got them, one of the things that got them, they were 1 for 3 in the red zone. They had an interception on the second drive of the game down in the red zone. And then obviously the turnover on downs from the 1 yard line. Just two sickening moments for Texas fans. Convert on just one of those, you win the game. Coin flip, right? Should be able to win a coin flip. Passing, Texas was 32 for 38 for 371 yards and a touchdown. We mentioned the second interception. There were 2 interceptions on the day for Quinn Ewers. The first one was really, really bad. He just absolutely threw it to the wrong guy. I think all week long in practice, they've worked on that. They had an idea what they thought Oklahoma would do, how they would set up to it, how they'd align, and then what they would do at the snap. And it must have been all week long that Adonai Mitchell was going to be the guy that comes open as Xavier Worthy clears somebody out of that zone or clears a man player out of that area. And what actually happened is the linebacker jumped out into the flat in front of, towards Adonai Mitchell. Xavier Worthy cleared right behind him into an open space. If Ewers gets him the ball right there, Worthy might have scored. That's how open he was. But I don't think Ewers ever looked at him. Second interception was a higher throw. It wasn't a perfect throw. But I really don't think he had a choice. I think if he doesn't elevate that ball the way he elevated that ball gets batted at the line of scrimmage. 2 Oklahoma Sooners right there with their hands up. Looked like where the ball went through their hands could have gotten to it if it was a little bit lower. I mean, you never really can tell, but certainly that's probably what he saw. That was his worry. I think the other thing, whether it's a perfect throw or not, the ball hit Sanders right in both hands. And I ain't dogging on Sanders. I think I mentioned this yesterday. I'm not dogging on Sanders at all. That's not an easy play. But you got to catch that ball. If you're a top 2 tight end prospect for the NFL in the country, that's one of those plays you got to make. And I think it was a makeable play. It wouldn't have been easy by any stretch, but it was a makeable play. Sanders has great hands, usually very sure-handed. So I don't know what the deal was there. Just didn't work out. Gets hit, ball goes up in the air. Comes down right in front of OU players who catches it, runs a little bit. So it's the way it goes. Thought the O-line just gave up way too much pressure in this game. I think there were 5 sacks. I think part of that was because Jake Majors went out earlier in this game at center, really early. I believe it was the second drive. Went out with looked like an ankle or a knee injury. So they're playing their third string center because our backup center was already out. Cole Hudson, backup right guard, backup center, has been out since the Wyoming game. Did hear today that he will be back for Houston next Saturday. So that's good news. So it's probably, and by the way, the third string center is a redshirt freshman, and I don't think he's ever played a snap. He might be on like one of the field goal teams or something like that. I doubt he's on I doubt he's on punt team. So if he played at all, he's played on the field goal team. Maybe late in some games this season. Not a whole lot of playing time. Not in any kind of situations where certainly nothing even close to the environment he was in on Saturday. And I think, if you want to lose it, if you lose an offensive lineman, you definitely don't want it to be the center. You could argue the left tackle or the backside tackle of your quarterback, depending on which way he throws. But definitely the center, man. That's the guy that makes all the calls. That's the guy that gets everybody lined up and gets everybody on the same page. And I don't know if any of the sacks or any of the pressures had anything to do with any sort of mental mistakes on his part, but it's possible. And then I think you saw him a few times just get overpowered, just not ready to be in that type of environment against that type of opponent. It's not an excuse, not making an excuse whatsoever. I'm just pointing out the fact, man. Third string center had to play that whole game, so he got a chance to grow up a bunch. And then again, the other side of it is you got to just give credit to OU's front four, man. They just got after Texas's ass pretty consistently from the beginning of the game on. It was kind of tough sledding a lot of the times. I think one of two things needs to happen on these short passes near the sideline after watching this game. These short passes that are either just behind the line of scrimmage or damn near laterals. They need to block better or they need to trash them. Man, I don't know. I don't. To me, it seems like a simple concept just to get your body in the way of somebody. But man, we just did not do it in this Oklahoma game. Did not get a lot of extra yardage on any of these type plays. Rushing, man, I thought Texas rushed the ball really well. I love watching that counter play, and I love seeing Jonathan Brooks just take it straight up the middle. He doesn't even necessarily follow the pulling guard and tackle, or in some cases, pulling guard and tight end that are kicking out. But he sees something generally right. I mean, it almost looks like he's running a trap play. When the trap actually happens, a little further outside of the center area. But he sees something, he's gone, man, and I love it. I'm here for it. I think the most big runs that Jonathan Brooks and really any of these guys have come off of that counter action. Occasionally, these guys will break one on a zone play, an inside zone play, but generally, I think it's the more power schemes that allow them to know this is exactly where I got to go. And they get there in a hurry, and they're blocking them pretty well. So I think we got to use the bye week to teach Quinn Ewers to slide. That was a rough turnover at a critical point in the game. Players that popped for me offensively, Savion Red, man. Big fourth down conversion on a pass early in the game. Then another third down conversion on the ground later in the game, and man, that little wildcat package or whatever the hell they call it, the wild red, the red wild, I don't know. I don't even know what they call it. But Savion Red had some nice plays. That was a beautiful ball he threw. I think Savion Red played quarterback in high school, so that one's That one's not super surprising. What's kind of surprising is the balls of the play call. We saw Steve Sarkisian throw the ball a couple times on 4th and short in this game, and it worked out both times. The aforementioned Jonathan Brooks, the 4th 100-yard game in a row, 22 carries, 129 yards, big touchdown late to tie it up. Really awesome catch early in the second quarter to set up a 4th and short, which eventually turned into a touchdown throw to Gunnar Helm. Jonathan Brooks, I think, and I should have looked this up, but I think that guy's leading all Power 5 rushers at this point. He's on pace to go for roughly 1,500 yards, which would be a really good season. Thought Quinn Ewers responded really well to the early turnovers. Really, really well. I mean, this dude threw a hell of a game. 31 for 37 for 346 yards and a touchdown on 84% completions. He did a really good job for the majority of this game finding guys. And if, one simple thing like trying to throw to the wrong guy on the second play of the game got him behind, man, and it just was a battle to get back in it. Gunnar Helm, 4 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. We're starting to see Gunnar Helm take a bigger role in this offense, and he's stepping up. Not only does he actually have to be out there a lot because, Sanders has been injured. Sanders missed almost all of the KU game. He missed a lot of this game. You saw him limping around a little bit in this game. I don't think he's 100%, not even close. But you see Gunnar Helm have to be forced into a bigger role, and not only does he do that, and he does it pretty well, and stepping up and making some plays. Jordan Whittington, we talked about this either Thursday of last week or Friday of last week. I think it was probably Thursday on Deep Dive Thursday, how we thought Jordan Whittington might have himself a really big game. And he did. 10 catches, 115 yards. Another time where Quinn Ewers did not see what he could have seen. I don't know that he should have seen. But there was a 3rd and 19 late in the first quarter where Jordan Whittington was just absolutely wide open. Quinn Ewers kind of got pushed out of the pocket to the right. You had a little zone game going on with a little comeback and maybe a little corner route over the top of it for the wide receivers on that side. And then you had Whittington coming from the slot all the way across the field like on an arrow route. He was wide ass open, folks. I mean, there was nobody within 15 yards of him. He could have thrown just a terrible ball to Jordan Whittington, and it would have been a completion for sure, more than likely a touchdown. Missed opportunity. I think, you look at this game for Texas, that's really what it was, a bunch of missed opportunities. Defensively, kind of a mixed bag, man. They forced 4 punts. Jaron Thompson gets the big, pass breakup in the end zone, which could have just really easily been an interception that would have erased 3 points for OU. Would have been his third, really, really big moment interception of the season. And again, I don't know what happened. He had it right in his hands, just didn't squeeze it and finish it. I thought at times the defense played the run really well. Especially in the second half, I thought the defense, for the majority of the second half, played really nice football. They just kept getting the ball back for the offense. But they just weren't good in critical situations all day. OU was 6 of 6 in the red zone for 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals. You had the blown coverage on the game-winning touchdown. So it wasn't just physical problems for Texas at some of these critical moments. A lot of it was mental and scheme. You had the end of the first half and the end of the game. Oklahoma's got the ball in both situations with no timeouts. They go down the field. They kick a field goal at the end of the first half, score a touchdown at the end of the game to win it. They get the ball back to start the second half, go right down the field, get a touchdown. You know, you got to win at least one of those. Out of those 3 drives, the end of the half, the beginning of the second half, and the final drive of the game, if you're the Texas Longhorns or you're any team, you've got to be able to win at least one of those, and they didn't win any of them. I think you could tell Texas was kind of worried about Oklahoma and the long ball. Lots of really loose man coverage that just did not work. Made those little screens out in the flat a lot more effective. Those little short comeback routes were super effective. Oklahoma turned those into yards after catch almost every single time because it's hard to come up and make a tackle when you're playing 12 yards off or 8 yards off, especially in space. Players that popped defensively, there wasn't a lot. I thought early in the game, T'Vondre Sweat looked really, really dominant. He had a big QB pressure there where he pushed the Oklahoma offensive lineman with one arm, just pushed him back into the backfield, got a nice hit on Dylan Gabriel just after he threw the ball. Early on, he was big in the run game, obviously. I mean, the guy eats up space. He eats up blockers. Had a pass deflection early on in the game. T'Vondre Sweat had a really good first half of this game, and then kind of, I think, honestly, he just got wore out, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I thought Anthony Hill had a really good game. 8 tackles, 5 solo, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss. Looked like, to me, Anthony Hill was a lot all over the field. You just saw 0 a lot of times around the football on defense. Jahdae Barron's another guy that just consistently has really good games, playing up around the line of scrimmage. I don't know if he can cover anybody. And I'm not saying he can't. I just don't know. You just don't see it a lot. He plays up so close to the line of scrimmage so often. But, man, that dude can tackle. I'll tell you that. 11 tackles, 5 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. Jahdae Barron is probably the best tackler on this team. He's amazing in space. He just does, I mean, he's in position and he doesn't let go. He's going to play in the NFL. One of the biggest differences between college football and the NFL is the tackling. You just don't see, you see plays in the NFL all the time where you're like, man, he's about to bust this. No, he's not, because there's a dude right there, and NFL players just don't miss tackles. If they do, they're not NFL players for very long. I think Jahdae Barron's got that type of ability. I don't know that he's going to get drafted. On the flip side, I don't know that he's not going to get drafted, but I think he's definitely the type of guy that could stick on a team, get a chance, and have a nice career in the NFL. So not a whole lot to talk about defensively other than just, man, they just didn't win situationally at all on Saturday. Special teams, I thought the fake punt was really nice. Nicely schemed, nicely executed. I did not get to see this live. So me watching that on the broadcast last night and early this morning, that was the first time I've seen it really good. I didn't get to see the Savion Red pass play either. I had no idea that happened. Thought Keaton Crawford made a very, or maybe it's Keaton Crawford. Thought he made an outstanding individual play on the block kick, the block punt. Like to see more of that out of him. He's a special teams warrior. I think that running into the kicker penalty really, really hurt. You just kind of, the first 6 minutes of that game were so nuts. You saw 2 interceptions. You saw a fake punt. You saw Texas go for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 out of the Wildcat and throw the ball down the field to a tight end. You saw like a reverse kickoff by Oklahoma. Just a crazy ass first few minutes of that game. Block punt for a touchdown. And I felt like Texas was kind of finally, at this point, when they got that stop and before they had that running into the kicker penalty that extended that drive, Texas kind of finally had seized the momentum of this game. It looked like Texas had settled in. They were, at that point in the game, they were making more plays than Oklahoma. They were getting them off the field. They were moving the ball offensively. They were getting some points on the board. And then that play happens. And OU gets to go down the field, gets another chance, and they get a field goal. I wouldn't say it's like the biggest moment in the game by any stretch, but it was certainly one of those moments you look at and go, man, love to have that one back. They got to find somebody that'll go just catch a punt. Man, I am so tired of watching punts hit the ground. They got to find somebody. Like, they just need to find some walk-on kid that's like, doesn't give a shit and will just go catch the ball. Y'all remember when Texas Tech used to have those dudes, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker? Not only did they go catch the ball wherever it was at, they didn't even fair catch. Like, you rarely saw those dudes fair catch. Yeah, they just put their body in harm's way to gain that field position and gain that opportunity to maybe get a nice return. And I'm not calling anybody out here. I'm just saying they got to find somebody that will go catch the fucking ball. Because you're giving up yardage. You're putting yourselves in bad situations where the ball's bouncing around. You got guys running around trying to block people. You got the returner trying to jump on the ball, late when it's bouncing around on the ground. That shit, just catch the ball. Find the ball off his foot. Get there. Catch the ball. Find that guy, please, for the love of God. Let's not let any more punts drop and hit the ground. I don't understand why they're bringing the ball out of the end zone when the ball is 5 yards deep. I think they had a special play on it. Looked like they had some sort of, like counter action, which is kind of interesting. Sure, I've seen it before, but it's been a while. You just don't see a lot of kickoff returns anymore. And usually they're so quick that, nothing really materializes. But this one, they brought some guys around from the home side of the field towards the Sooner bench side of the field to lead up through. And it looked like, man, it almost looked like it was about to work. Keelan Robinson just ran right into a dude from Oklahoma. So there's some stuff to work on special teams wise, but I thought the field goal kicker was great. Bert Auburn did a great job. 3 field goals, made a really good 47-yarder right down the middle. Nothing overly exciting about that one except for the fact that he got it through the uprights from 47 yards to put Texas up with 1:12, 1:17, something like that. Final thoughts on this game, and when we're going to put it to bed. Mac Brown said something to the effect of never let the same game beat you twice. It was kind of usually his Red River shootout quote. It was usually after an embarrassing loss to Oklahoma. But I think that's got to be the message as Texas heads into this bye week, as they look to go on the road next week against the Houston Cougars. Don't let this one beat you twice. Man, I know it sucked. I know it sucked for those players because it sucked for fans. And you know what? We didn't practice all week. We weren't out on the field. We weren't the ones doing the hitting. We weren't the ones feeling all the pain. We were just the ones there cheering them on, and it sucked for us. So I know it sucked for the players because I've been in that situation. Texas got to realize they still control their own destiny. Got to get up off the mat, and you got to finish this season. You got 6 more games in the Big 12. The schedule is favorable. I don't think it's easy. I'm not saying that. I just think it's favorable. I think Texas is going to be favored in every single one of those games headed down the stretch. So their mission now needs to be, leave no doubt. There's probably some weird tie-break shit that could keep them out of the Big 12 championship game. They need to just win out. Offensive line has just got to be better in the pass game. They got to figure out a way to help Ewers out. Man, when Ewers has time, and it doesn't even have to be a lot of time. I'm not talking about like forever time. When he has time to see what's going on, he can generally get that ball where it needs to go pretty accurately and lead this offense on some scoring drives. But I think he spent way too much time getting sacked and just kind of running around trying not to get sacked on Saturday. Again, I don't know how much having the third string center in affected them, from a mental perspective, not being in the right protections, not making the right calls. I don't know. Certainly a possibility. But again, I think a lot of it was just Oklahoma just was better than them physically at the point of attack in the passing game. And both of those things are fixable. It's not like the Oklahoma defensive line is just physically better. They just played physically better. I think, we've talked about it before with these younger offensive linemen. If they don't really know and aren't really confident that they know what they need to be doing, they don't always play as physically as they should. I think we saw that with DJ Campbell early on in the season. Still trying to figure himself out, still a little bit not confident in that he knew what he should be doing, and it showed on the field physically. So that's a correctable thing, but they got to correct that because Quinn Ewers can't be getting sacked 5 times a game. That's going to be a problem. Clock management by the coaching staff, I thought was just absolute garbage, man. And maybe I'm nitpicking some shit. I don't know. And you could probably say you don't worry about that. You're just trying to get points. And man, I get all that, but we've seen coaches that can manage the clock and still get points. And so I thought that as I was watching the game, man, like sure seems like we gave Oklahoma some time we didn't have to give them. And so I made sure when I went back and watched the game that I looked at all that stuff. So check out these two. These are the last 2 drives for Texas before Oklahoma's last 2 drives of each half. So Texas crossed the 50-yard line with 50 minutes left in the half in the second quarter. And here's their plays after that. They throw a big pass to Xavier Worthy that got him across the 50. The next play, they snap the ball with 26 seconds left on the clock and run it. Then they snap the ball with 17 seconds left on the play clock and run it. 13 seconds left on the play clock and run it. 28 seconds on the play clock and pass it. 11 seconds left on the play clock in the little jet sweep, which, by the way, shit can that play, please, on the goal line. I mean, shit can it anyway. We can't block on the perimeter. There's no use in running anything to the perimeter right now because they just can't block it. So if they would have just ran the clock down to 10 seconds on those plays, that's 55 seconds that they'd have had. They kicked a field goal with 1:57. Oh, you got the ball back with 53 or a minute 53. And it could have been 58 seconds. So roughly, it's 55 seconds, roughly a minute. You look at OU's final drive of the first half, and it wouldn't have probably made a difference. Certainly didn't from a time perspective. They were in field goal range around the 50-second mark, so they could have They could have gotten down the field, gotten field goal range, and kicked a field goal. Probably as time's expiring in the second half. So let's assume that's all equal. But the point is, you can't just leave teams tons of time. I mean, they damn near converted that into a touchdown, which would have been real problematic. The one that was absolutely just bad in hindsight. I mean, again, man, I don't know that I would have done any better necessarily. I think when you're in those types of situations, I don't think it's very easy to think about these things. I think these are the types of things you have to have already planned in your mind, like earlier in the week. And all you need is a reminder somewhere on this sheet all these guys carry, this laminated sheet. You know, hey, if we're in this situation, here's what we do. And I know they practice it. Steve Sarkisian talks all the time about the 4-minute offense and the 2-minute drill and all that stuff. So I don't know if he ran according to his plan, if he did what he would have normally done. But here's what happened. Here's what happened on their final drive. Well, their second to last drive of the fourth quarter. We're not counting the one they had 15 seconds. They get the ball on their own 13 with 4 minutes and 49 seconds left. They pick up a quick first down out to the 25. There's now 4 minutes and 25 seconds left. And here's the plays they ran after that. And to me, with 4.5 minutes at your own 25, I don't think you need to be rushing anything, especially in a tie game. They snapped the ball at 28 seconds and threw a pass out to the 41. So now they're out near midfield. So they definitely should slow down at this point. Snap the ball again at 28 seconds on the play clock, another pass. 27 seconds on the play clock, a run. 22 seconds on the play clock, a run. 24 seconds on the play clock, a pass. 12 seconds on the play clock, another pass. So again, if they just milk that clock down to 10 seconds on the play clock on every single one of those plays, that's an extra 81 seconds off the clock. They kicked a field goal with 1 minute and 22 seconds left in the game. If they would have just ran the play clock down to 10 seconds on all those plays, they could have kicked a field goal with 1 second left and won that game and never gave the ball back to Oklahoma. And you always talk, he always talks and coaches always talk about not giving the other team the opportunity to have the ball last. Well, the only way to do that is to milk the clock. Again, there could be a million good reasons why he did what he did or why he didn't make it a point. Like, to me, this is not his fault. He's obviously not snapping the ball. But if his intent was to say, hey, let's snap this thing at 10 seconds or around 10 seconds every time, that's a conversation you got to have with Quinn Ewers. So I don't know. I don't know if he was thinking they would just keep getting first downs and then be able to kind of walk it off and kick a field goal that way. And actually, if they make that last first down, they would have. They would have been able to do just that. But we've talked about the clock management stuff before. Against Kansas, they took 3 timeouts into halftime for no apparent reason at all. They rushed everything. Rushed Quinn Ewers into throwing, not a great pass. And I'm not saying he should have thrown the pass. I'm not even taking the blame away from him from throwing that pass against Kansas. But I guarantee you the rush he was in was at least a factor in him throwing that ball where he threw that ball. And it was just senseless. Take a timeout. Get some game plan together. Talk about the next few plays. Be all on the same page. And go execute it. That's why you have the timeouts. Like, I get these guys' game plan, and I get that these guys practice for every single, like, possibility, right? I know they do that. But you've got timeouts because things change, and sometimes it's important to slow down. Sometimes the plan that you thought you might need isn't the plan you really need. I thought Oklahoma's game plan to go fast really wore out the defensive line for Texas, and it prevented them from, you know, subbing like they want to sub. We've talked about it on the show before. Texas subs more on defense probably than any other team in the country, certainly along the defensive line. Is because they've got so many good defensive linemen that it doesn't necessarily matter who's in there. There's not a lot of fall off most of the time. Like, pretty much they're kind of interchangeable in the two deep. But they weren't able to do that a lot. Certainly not the way they wanted to do. And I think Oklahoma goes fast most of the time anyway. I think coming into that game, they were one of the faster teams at getting the ball snapped. But, man, and so I don't know that it was necessarily a part of their game plan for Texas, but certainly something they want to do, and it certainly had an impact on the game. There was a play in the middle of the second quarter where Tavondre Sweat is like barely jogging, trying to keep up with Dylan Gabriel, who like, I mean, he like ran right past him basically, and he didn't even try. He was so freaking worn out. It definitely had an impact on the pass rush late in the game, late in the halves. Where Drunk Sean was wrong and where Drunk Sean was right. So we talk about Exaggeration Monday. That's live watching Drunk Sean. And then this after action review on Tuesday is always the sober, no emotion, just telling it like it really was, Sean. So what do we get wrong? What do we get right from yesterday to today? I said yesterday we need to run the ball more. And I think I was kind of wrong. I think I'm wrong on that. After watching it, I think the balance was fine. Quinn Ewers had the best game he's ever had yesterday. Outside of those first two drives. From then on out, he was ridiculously good. Now, I would like to see them establish it earlier in games. It seems like we don't even do it at all on first drives. Just not doing it. And then I'd like to see a personnel change until Baxter is 100%. Man, I get it, man. Baxter is a great talent. He's obviously done something to come in there and prove to the staff that he can play because he started as a true freshman. I'm not even going to hate on that mistake by the coaching staff because Jonathan Brooks absolutely should have been the guy taking the majority of the handoffs for all season. But I do think it's a mistake, and I do think there's a problem when you continue to trot that guy out there when you got healthy running backs. Jaden Blue is good. Like, he's probably the most talented of the three. His speed, I think, is better than any of the other two. His elusiveness, like his shiftiness, I think is better than the other two. I'm not saying that makes him a better back. I'm just saying he's got something to me that those two guys do not have. And I've said it before too. I'm not in practice. I don't know that kid's attitude. I don't know if he shows up and participates in meetings the way he should. I don't know if he's doing the things he should do. So all I can judge my opinion on is what I see on the field. CJ Baxter like gets up limping every single time he touches the ball. He is clearly not 100%. It's a long season. Like, let this kid get healthy. Use some of these other backs that you're paying scholarships for. So that's all I would say about the running game in general. We ran out of time on Exaggeration Monday to talk about this, but there was a couple plays during the game that I thought could have been targeting by Oklahoma. The Sanders hit on the second interception live, and from my vantage point, looked very targety. And then there was a play at some point in the fourth quarter against Worthy. I think it was that second to last drive for Texas where they kicked the field goal to take the lead. There was a play that I thought, again, from my vantage point and live, looked kind of targety. But I was wrong. I don't think either one of those plays were targeting. They were just close. I mean, they were close, but they weren't. And they were just good football plays. Good tackles. We said on Exaggeration Monday that the prevent defense is ass. It is antiquated. It probably statistically puts you in a bad position to meet your goal, which is keep the other team from scoring. Now, I'm 100% right about that, and I don't give a damn. You can argue with me all you want about, like, execution and, da-da-da. I don't want to hear that shit. You are absolutely putting your players in the worst possible position by running that bullshit. You could have landed a So every time Texas lined up in this defense, the 3 down linemen, the cornerbacks, 10 to 12 yards off the ball, the high safety, like 30 yards off the ball, the linebackers, like split out wide in the flat kind of. Every time they lined up in this shit, you could have landed a helicopter in between all of them and never touched any of them. So before the play even happens and everybody starts, reading the quarterback and moving around and everybody starts backpedaling because for whatever reason they're deathly afraid of someone getting behind them, even though there was only one play in the whole game where anybody got behind them. They're already so far apart. All somebody's got to do, and this is all Oklahoma did, was run somebody into the middle of the field, block 3 guys with 5 for about 4 seconds, and then throw it to the guy that's about to be right in the middle of the field. First down and more every single time. There are some times where that kind of defense is good, and it's called with 15 seconds left, like Oklahoma did. Give them the ball in the middle of the field. And then make some tackles. The 3-man rush is absolutely useless. You might as well just put 11 DBs out there if you're going to put 3 down linemen, because you need 11 guys to cover now, because those 3 linemen are not getting to the quarterback. I just don't, man, it did not work at the end of the end of the first half, and it absolutely did not work at the end of the second half. The perimeter tackling was ass. I said that yesterday on Exaggeration Monday, and I was right. Playing off, have to come up and make plays, and that's not an easy play. I'm not necessarily even dogging on the kids. Again, I don't think the coaching staff put them in good positions. They're playing off like that, something they're not used to. They've been playing press coverage all season long. Every last one of these kids, even these freshmen that are coming in, been playing press coverage all season long, lining up like literally across the line of scrimmage from these guys. And now you're going to play them 12 yards off the ball and expect them to come up and make tackles. Oklahoma turned those little hitch plays into big plays so many times in this game, and those little sideways, damn near backwards passes into big plays so many times in this game because Texas just took themselves out of the play by alignment. I have no idea why that was the plan against it. Look, we talked about the deep ball and that being a concern and Texas being susceptible to it coming into this game, and we knew Oklahoma was going to try to take advantage of that. But I don't know that means you do things that you just haven't practiced before. haven't done in games. I'm not sure that means that. Random college football thoughts. We wanted to talk about this yesterday because a lot of this is emotionally driven stuff. This is all stuff that I saw during the game, again, from the stands, and it's officiating. And before I go any more into this, like, I don't think Texas lost this game because of the officiating. So don't send me an email that says, oh, you're just a sore loser and all this kind of crazy shit. I bitch about officiating in games I don't care about because I hate bad officiating. I think it's the easiest thing in the world to do is to just be present and call the game by the rules. But officiating has become so horribly inconsistent across all sports that we've kind of got these. Used to be there was penalties, and these were the penalties, and this is what they meant. And there wasn't a lot of interpretation. Now you kind of got these two sets of penalties. You got penalties where there shouldn't be any room for interpretation. Procedure penalties, those are obvious, right? Face masks, those should be obvious, right? Unsportsmanlike conduct. There's a rule for it. Like, it says specifically what unsportsmanlike conduct is. But somehow this has evolved, and now there's all this interpretation that these guys are doing on certain penalties. Pass interference. And by the way, pass interference is one of the penalties where there shouldn't be any room for interpretation. Like, it's pass interference if you do X or any number of things. It's pass interference. But now there's like this interpretation. Targeting, there's this interpretation. Unsportsmanlike conduct has suddenly become a penalty that there's interpretation. It's widely inconsistently called. Holding is holding. Why is it such an inconsistently called penalty? And honestly, this Red River shootout was one of the most poorly officiated games I've ever seen. And again, please don't make this a homer thing. I'm just telling you what I saw during this game. And there was a play where Texas should have got flagged for something. I cannot remember the specifics. But I did see a play where Texas should have got called for a penalty that wasn't called. So again, I'm not trying to make this a homer thing. I'm not trying to make this an excuse. But here's the misses that I saw from the stands at the game in the Cotton Bowl, and I was in the upper deck, folks. I was in the first 10 rows of the upper deck at the Cotton Bowl, and here's what I saw. I saw a face mask on the opening kickoff. How in the fuck do you miss a face mask on the opening kickoff? How do you miss that? You're not looking at the guy running the ball? You don't see his head get whipped around? There's no other thing. There's no other physical thing that happens in a football game to make your head whip around than someone grabbing your face mask. I saw a face mask on 4th and goal on the Worthy play where he ended up just short. The kid was ripping his fucking helmet off by his face mask. You didn't see that? Nobody saw that. You saw that he didn't get in the end zone, and you saw the exact spot where the ball should be spotted, but you didn't see the guy with his arm over his head ripping his head back by his face mask. You didn't see that? I saw a pass interference late in the game on a long ball to Worthy. I saw a clearly dropped pass. And again, I am at 10 rows up in the upper deck of the Cotton Bowl. I wouldn't even want to guess how far that play happened for me, but I saw the ball hit the ground when Stoops tried to catch that ball, and they called it a catch. And I know they reviewed it, and I know they overturned it. How do you miss that? You have to be watching the guy that has the ball to officiate the game of football. Someone does. And since like so much depends on whether you have the ball or don't have the ball, I don't understand how you miss that. Like, how does a dude not getting paid to officiate the game see more penalties, see the ball hit the ground from 10 rows up in the upper deck than the guys that are literally right there on the field and are getting paid to officiate the game? How do you throw a flag for pass interference when the receiver's out of bounds and the ball lands out of the bounds, but you don't call pass interference on a play where the DB runs through the receiver on a ball that lands in bounds? Completely prevents him from trying to get back to the ball to catch the ball. How is one of those pass interference, but the other one's not? And again, I don't know if they don't call that pass interference against Texas. I'm not sure that keeps Oklahoma from scoring. They're going to tie the game for sure. But I don't even know if Texas keeps them out of the end zone there. And yeah, ultimately that non-call against Xavier Worthy, that didn't hurt Texas. They were able to go down and score on that play or on that drive. But that's not the point. The point is, like, how do you miss that stuff? How are you so bad at that? How is celebrating a blocked punt for a touchdown in the end zone where you just scooped the ball up to score a touchdown with your teammates? How is that unsportsmanlike conduct? But standing over the quarterback after he's sacked and taunting him in his face is not. Again, those penalties probably. Those two penalties probably didn't, like, change the outcome of the game. They could have. They might not have. But, like, your job is to call the game. Your job is to call the game consistently. Like, your job is to... Listen, humans make mistakes. We all get that. Nobody's asking these guys to be perfect. I just think we're asking them to be consistent. If celebrating in the end zone after you score a touchdown with your teammates is an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, surely taunting a player in the middle of the field is an unsportsmanlike penalty. Just be consistent. And if you're going to interpret things, you have to be consistent in your interpretation of it. You can't pick and choose when you're going to apply a certain interpretation to a rule. The only way for officials, and you hear this all the time, and it's kind of irritating to me. You hear people say, oh, they don't really affect the outcome of the game, or that didn't affect the outcome of the game. The problem is you can't know that. That's one. Two, it shouldn't even come to that. Like, even their misses should be consistent to the point where it mitigates their outcome of the game. Like, if there's one guy that wants to call holding, he's like the strictest holding guy there is. And if you grab, you're getting thrown for a penalty. You're getting a penalty. As long as he does that every time he sees that, both ways, game on. You'll have some guys that'll let receivers, like, beat the shit out of each other going down the field for a pass. I'm okay with that, as long as they do it every single time. As long as all of a sudden late in the game, when you're in a situation where the game could be on the line, and all of a sudden he wants to throw a penalty for it, and he's been letting it go the whole game, that's wrong. You impacted the game because you changed the way you officiated the game. I don't know if any of these, again, I don't know if any of these change the outcome of the game, but consider this. What if Texas gets 4 more cracks at the goal line, at the end zone, from a foot off the goal line? Because they call that penalty a face mask, which they absolutely should have. Maybe they score a touchdown. which would have changed the outcome of the game completely. What if on that no call on the taunting, Texas gets a first down? Maybe Quinn Ewers doesn't have to scramble, get nailed, fumble the football. Maybe Texas gets a first down and a lot better field position on that second to last drive because they correctly threw a pass interference. Maybe that changes the outcome of the game. Again, not using that as an excuse. Texas did all kinds of shit to themselves to keep them from winning this football game. To me, ultimately, it was they didn't get in the end zone 4 straight times. And they lost situationally on defense, like almost every place they could lose situationally in this game. Officials have to be better, man. There's too much on the line anymore. There's tons of money on the line. There's you cannot be that bad, man. You can't miss obvious stuff like face masks. You can't inconsistently call unsportsmanlike conducts. You just can't do it. Check us out on Thursday. We'll do Deep Dive Thursday. We don't have a game to deep dive this week. So we're just going to kind of deep dive where Texas is mid-season versus maybe what we thought they'd be. Maybe a little bit about what the rest of the season looks like for them. We'll have some more random college football thoughts. Who knows what they'll be. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Please follow and subscribe. Won't cost you a thing. We appreciate the support. It was good to see some of y'all at the Cotton Bowl. Got to shake some of y'all's hands. That was cool. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good Tuesday and get hooked.